It's October 2023. Let's see where HAX is today, as well as some possible technology avenues on the horizon that take it to the next level. First off, let's start with where HAX is now. We go to hax.psu.edu. We have a SaaS version of the platform, or software as a service. Here you can go and start a new journey, pick a course name, and in a matter of seconds and clicks, you have a brand new HAX website. What you're getting with a HAX website is highly performant static HTML. The entire HAX ecosystem is driven by two primary concepts. One is something that would model much of what we would think of as a database, but is a static file. In this file, we have the name of the site and we have the items of our site. So as I open this in another window, we'll see we're just visualizing the items there. So in HAX, when I go to add a page or add a child page of content, all that's happening is this static file is being told there's another page. In this case, its parent is the previous one. Every page is pointing to a static HTML file. So if I were to take this file and we look at it, this is the what can I do with HAX page. You'll note that it doesn't have the advanced media interactions that can be seen on this page, including the silly meme and the video player. However, if I view the source of this page, we see that they're there. Highly semantic, minimalist. When I save content in HAX, it's just writing back to this file. So when I go in and I say, take this grid plate, which is a column layout, and we delete it, hit save. It's extremely fast because all that's happening as we refresh is we're just getting rid of that bit of HTML in this one file. So as a result of that, and the web component standard that HAX is built on top of, we can have an ever-growing universe of tags that are extremely performant to meet any number of use cases in a format that works forever, is fast, can be reloaded, put into other systems, and do any number of things. In this regard, HAX is revolutionary. We can keep expanding the universe with minimal resourcing. It's very easy for novice users to generate tags that work with HAX in this regard. So I can add any number of advanced interactions you saw whiz by there. Hit save, and ultimately, we're just writing to this file in highly semantic HTML. So with that foundation, where can we go from here? Let's look back at the horizon, if that's where we are today. So the first place we could go is into designing and developing other themes so that people think of HAX as more than just for courses. What do I mean? Let's mock up some content on this page real quick. I'll insert a video player. I'll make it a 3-column layout. We're going to insert an item below here. Okay, if I could spell it would help. We can duplicate the paragraph. We can move it around. We could duplicate the entire set of these, and so on. I'm going to add any number of blocks to satisfy instructional objectives, sure. And when I use phrases like instructional objectives, or when I demonstrate the power of potentially having inline multiple choice questions, it makes you think that it's an educational centric tool. And at some level it is. I'll apparently change the name of that page. But now let's change the design. So we have this page of content, which I had to recover because I deleted in the previous demo the page that it was a child page of. So if I were to take this and edit the site settings, we have some more advanced options that we typically don't show. But under theme, we have clean course theme. So if I were to take this and we change it to a different clean theme in this case, because it's mostly white space, well utilized, right? We have a different navigational structure. In this theme, when we do headings, they'll show up in a little hierarchy, right? So we have some different features associated with this design. And because the content is not pegged to the design necessarily, we could then switch to the learning theme, another one that we've used before and demonstrated for some courses. This one is very similar as well. Navigation, slightly different place. However, you're still thinking this is linear course management sort of a platform because of the design and because of the blocks in question. Let's make it something different. Let's go completely different. Let's go with, this says blog theme. So if this was use a blog and I add pages to the blog, we're not adding them in a hierarchy. We're able to then have content that we potentially put the design to in such a way that as someone were to go and read our, in this case, Never Miss a Story from Horizon Report, right? This is a prototype, obviously. It's not fully baked. But we could take that same static content and play it, if you will, in a different configuration to give users a completely different perception of what the tool is. Let's do it again. Let's go from a blog to, in this case, a resume. And it says terrible resume. The terrible themes that are listed here that are hidden in the system are effectively websites that I made in my youth. This is mostly for demonstrative purposes, but also to try and break out of the mentality that this is any one thing. So if I wanted to make it look like the production company that I had at one point, production used very lightly, our content is still presented in the fashion it is. We can now still present things in a hierarchy, but now I have a studio, air quotes. We can do this with any number of designs. If we wanted to go and just do something that other groups would commonly see, right? They expect to see something like a Bootstrap or Twitter Bootstrap based design, right? That's off to the side. Many different companies use this sort of way of presenting documentation. But again, it's just presenting the hierarchy differently and then rendering the content in this space. So there's any number of things that we can come up with to fill this niche. These could be, university approved designs. They could be portfolios. They could be a pizza shop for all I care. It could be anything. It's what someone looking at it thinks of with the design and then with the blocks that are supplied. Another area, which I can just demonstrate by going to two links, is multi-user management. We don't currently have multi-user management as a concept because this is a system that stamps out your own copy. In fact, you can see, and this is this technology we call Haxium, hence the I am here. But with Haxium, it's giving me my own space and sites. If we were to take a WordPress parallel, this is a multi-site environment, meaning that I can make one site and then skip over to the next one. And I can just generate different sites that work independently, but are still owned and operated by me. With some investment in engineering, we could get this to be more like this, which currently we do some manual work under the hood to achieve. So this is our arts and architecture course that was worked on for summer of 23. If we notice the URL, my name is in the address. However, Brendan, a coworker, also has access to the identical site. If we had enough resources, we could actually work towards a user interface to allow this to be possible with user permissions as to who gets access to edit versus view versus collaborate, things like that. Whereas right now we're sort of intentionally punching a hole to make this happen. Close some of these. Another area we can move to, and it's kind of related to multi-user management, is headless auth or headless authentication. Now, this is a prototype that was worked on by a past student of mine, Andrew Mayer, in which we tried to set up a Auth0-esque interface. If you're not familiar with Auth0, this is effectively a provider of authentication. Not that we're baking our authentication directly into a product, that we have authentication as an abstract concept and things interface with that authentication broker. Now, there's a Red Hat open source appliance known as Keycloak, and we have a prototype of Keycloak running with this technology. So shown here, this Keycloak-login Vercel app, we just see a simple button that says click to log in. If I inspect, though, we'll see that the click to login button is actually a Keycloak-login tag, which interfaces with our service. So all that is shown here, and this is obviously a prototype, is just click to login. And when I click to login, we get a window that pops up. This would be similar to that Auth0 sort of configuration. In this, I could log in to university services, or I could log in with my GitHub, LinkedIn, or any other OAuth provider supported by Keycloak. In this case, I'll log in with GitHub. And now it knows that I'm Brian Olenek. Now, you didn't see me log in with GitHub, in part because I'm already logged into GitHub. So it brokered that OAuth connection, used that credential. And now, if I reload this page, we'll see now it just skips ahead and goes, oh, hey, Brian Olenek, BTO 108. So this tag is pegged to a standalone service that is not tied to any one authentication provider. Using this type of a technology, you could effectively drop the Keycloak login tag into an experience, and whether that's HAX or another system, and get a credential that has authorized securely who the user is. Now, obviously, there's more setup involved than that. This is purely a prototype, but this is something used by industry titans, this notion of a singular widget that you drop into a system, and now you interface with that widget and you have authentication. You don't need to go too deep in the code, but it is pretty simple as far as, it's like 100 lines of code to do that little interaction in a secure manner, and opens it up so that we can have an API for interfacing with this tag, so that other systems built interface with this tag. They don't build and support custom authentication or specific platform authentications. Google versus Microsoft versus, internal auth. It could all be done through one tag, brokering that experience. Settings within the tag, as well as Keycloak, help ensure security, but also what type of authentication do we want to accept. Using this and pairing it with another service, something like, in our case, we call it PSU Pay, but some type of credit card processing service, you could easily see how you could align this for generation of a non-credit course management platform, something that is desperately needed. If we just keep moving around our horizon, migration formats. Because of the way in which HAX is generated and the way it interfaces with the web and the way we think about content, we're always distilling things from HTML down to a very simple format, that little tiny blob of JSON. As a result, we can pretty much ingest anything that is well-structured data and convert it into a HAX-capable site. To see this in practice, if I go back to HAX and I log in and we start a new journey, you can see there's a big import from button, as well as the other possible things that we've mentioned in the horizon, types of things that could be done. Importing from effectively distills down to a three-step process. Can we parse whatever we've been sent? Can we turn that into structured HTML? Can we turn that structured HTML into the JSON outline schema format, the format that powers that site.json file? If we can do those three things, it's pretty easy to write an importer to parse. By way of demonstration, I could type in hackstheweb.org, which is going to go off, request, and it did it awkwardly fast, going to request the hackstheweb.org website and give me a perfect working copy of it. So this is that site as ingested and then recreated, because it's going from its own simplistic format to its own simplistic format. That's a very easy one to import and do something with. We can also ingest doc files in this same regard. So if I go to this, we could take, this is a older outline here, or a possible outline from a music course. So instructional design teams working with faculty to structure a Word document that already has appropriate heading order, content generated, media needs, could then upload that file and we generate a website from it. This is a website hierarchy, highly semantic, very readable, clean, accessible. And yes, it is just the heading hierarchy for the purpose of this demonstration, but we can easily pull anything off of that Word doc format as long as it's got headings in it and build a website from it. We also have support for Notion, Gitbook, Elms Learning Network, which is our platform that HAX kind of comes from. Evolution, we have beta support for Pressbooks, as well as the Drupal 7 plus, well, actually, I guess it would be Drupal 5 plus, anything newer than Drupal 5 through 10 and beyond version of the book module. It's very easy to take other properties and consume them because of the HTML nature. Now, that's not going to import all the media necessarily. Additional investment in that technology could streamline that process even further. But this takes the need for even having to go through the HAX interface and recreate clicks and copy and paste, and nullifies all of that. We were able to migrate Elms courses that took months, if not years, to work with faculty to produce in this solution, a Drupal-based solution in the case of Elms. We were able to take those courses, point to the URL, just like we did HAX CMS, as it asks there, and migrate those courses in seconds. Obviously, I did not supply a valid repo structure by just clicking the name. So we could support other formats if we wanted, different content management systems. You're not going to get highly sophisticated back-end workflows with this type of an approach. However, highly sophisticated back-end publishing workflows is a very small niche in the overall market as far as need for web properties. Moving forward in a similar fashion, support for HAX within other ecosystems. This is actually where we initially envisioned HAX long before it bled into the CMS sphere. If we go to the hackstheweb.org documentation site, we see there's an integration section. In the integration section, it gets into highly technical detail of different sorts of things that you can work with this in. It could be in HAX 11, it's standalone CMS, but the one I wanted to highlight for this part of the Horizon report is the support for, in this case, WordPress, so that we can drop in and use the HAX editor effectively in place of technologies like TinyMC and CK editor. So imagine if we're just trying to manipulate that HTML area within a web property, this is what these plugins provide. This is a whole task as far as maintenance, not of HAX necessarily, but maintenance of the integration with these ecosystems. It doesn't take a lot of effort to maintain, but as these are more rear-facing database-based technologies, they do have a larger security footprint than the HAX ecosystem does. And as a result, we need to keep up with those things, right? I have here's some special notes on Drupal, right? You need these certain modules enabled. But effectively, when we were working on HAX originally, it was for this system, which is Elms Learning Network. Elms Learning Network has a lot in common with HAX CMS, and that is because it's actually running HAX CMS on top of it. We can see here, there's HAX CMS Site Builder. This is the tag that all of the other HAX sites are generated from when they're on a single page. However, we point to a slightly different endpoint. This doesn't say site.json, but it's a file format that makes Drupal, in this case, because this is ultimately a Drupal 7 site. You can see I can go to all of the Drupal interfaces behind the scenes here. Ultimately, we've been able to trick Drupal into having a module that serves up the JSON outline schema format. So we get our hierarchy, the relationships between material. And then, because Drupal is just saving HTML data blobs, or pages, if you will, in its database, we can just take these nodes and point to them. In fact, if I hit edit, I can get to the more traditional Drupal interface that's hiding beneath the surface. I'm not entirely possible what will happen when I click block editor mode. But at first, when we did these integrations and it envisioned HAX, we were basically trying to replace this aspect. CK editor, in this case, is just writing HTML. But HAX writes HTML more semantically with better usability patterns. So what we're seeing right here, and yes, it is visually a little clunky because we haven't maintained this as far as in our design, was the idea that we had the CK editor at one point. You'd click edit in Drupal. If you've administered a more traditional Drupal site, then you would hit save, and then maybe you go, oh, it's time to try this HAX thing, and you would have the block editor, right? This was prior to us envisioning a whole content management system. So this aspect of the ecosystem, HAX plugging into existing systems, could also help with bridging the gap. There are possibly areas where we don't have the design in HAX CMS built out yet. However, you want to still use your existing solution because it's an easier editing experience. All right, there's Merlin. There's the blocks. We see that this interface is off to the left, whereas when we're in HAX CMS, we see it from the top. And so imagine that type of a user experience of a unified editing platform across all content management systems for that HTML blob area. This works in anything because it's a web component. Moving forward, as you've already seen, a step from there is HAX CMS plus bring your own backend, bring your own data source. That's effectively what we've done with the Elms Learning Network platform. So this is right here where my cursor is, this area above, this is effectively all that's left visually of Elms. Elms Learning Network is tricking Drupal into serving up HAX CMS. It's extremely fast as a result, even though it's hitting a database-based backend, because we're, again, just taking that database and turning those calls from hundreds of calls to generate a page into maybe 5 or 6, just to get what the body of content of the page is and then replace that on the front end. You can see the whole time the address is changing. However, if this was a traditional Drupal site, I wouldn't be able to even click between 10 of these pages in the time it takes to load 100 here. So this is bring your own backend, bring your own data set, your source. This is running HAX CMS on top of another platform. If I search in here, we can see there's the HAX CMS site builder, which is pointing to this file as it says. And there's our JSON outline schema. This is not a static file, as is the case in HAX CMS. However, the database of Drupal has used its data model to map to the HAX CMS data model. As a result, we have 58 pages in this site. Potential reasons for doing this: 1, initial migration. 2, you could have more complex workflows on the back end that require publishing, multiple users to authorize the release of material, drafts, potentially other workflows at play. This allows you to have that while still using the HAX authoring tools and HAX CMS for the visual, extremely fast aspect of it. This currently is only available in Drupal 7 with regard of making this part available in Elms. But it could be written to work off of any backend as long as we can structure that data in the JSON outline schema format, which is a very simple format. And then as long as we are reading and writing from the database. For context, HAX CMS has about 6 actual backend data calls as far as needing to save data or edit data on the quote unquote backend. That dramatically reduces the footprint as far as these custom integrations into these other ecosystems, whether it's for the text editing, file saving aspect of HAX or the full-blown content management system side. This one, I don't have anything I can show as far as desktop, although it is probably going to be replaced conceptually by HAX.cloud, which I'll show in a moment. But this is the idea that we could, because of the way this is structured, write an incredibly simplistic backend. And that backend could basically just be writing to files on the user's computer. A desktop app would allow you to build out webs and do web publishing entirely offline. Once we've got our site, and we're using 0 resources in this case, there's no sites to go down, scale is not the same consideration. But I'm able to do this on my computer using Electron. Electron allows us to package up this web code and then run it locally using local resources. But from a developer's perspective, they're still just implementing probably 98% of the same code that powers the rest of the ecosystem. There's a very slim layer there that needs to interface and be specific to a desktop environment. This would involve the need for us to have HAX CMS's backend, which is a very slim layer that's currently written in PHP and has been started to be ported to Node.js. It would require this to exist in order to attack the Electron app. Interestingly enough, though, from what I just said, if we have a Node.js-based backend, as far as mapping to those calls, reading and writing to those files correctly, then we have a command line version of HAX for developers. We also then have a desktop app, and we also have the ability to deploy on non-PHP based infrastructure with things like Express. Now, this next one is just a overarching goal. It would be to Dockerize Haxium and the HAX CMS infrastructure. We don't currently have a place to visualize this. However, something similar has been built by the university library in the form of this digital Beaumont and Fletcher resource. Now, not the site you're looking at, not this open publishing site. Where this aspect comes into play is when we go to these sites. I'll actually open both of them at the same time. So these are statically generated sites using HAX, but also using something to build them out called Eleventy. This is another project in the HAX ecosystem that we call HAX Leventy. Eleventy is a static site generator. Effectively, developers maintain static files in a directory and then run a script called a build routine. That build routine then churns through and builds a site that seems like it's the HAX CMS infrastructure. However, when they've been working on it, they're just editing a few markdown files and putting them in folders. Now, this side of HAX is not going to scale as far as end users when it comes to their ability to use the editing tools. We have access to all the aspects of HAX from a publishing and distribution side. However, we have to work in Markdown and writing HTML by hand. But what the libraries have been able to do is using a Docker-esque infrastructure whenever they need to make a new site and you see this address, right? This address changes slightly. They can just add an additional reference. And this is going to create a pipeline so that when content authors, in this case, to help put these plays online, you might see that has like this little flash of unstyled content and then it loads. This is a custom web interface for putting historical plays on the internet. And because of the way that they've put this in place, and I can actually go to the original file. Yep, there we go. So this is the original file. It's been OCR'd, it's been cleaned up and put into an XML-based format, and then it's played in that page, right? This is really neat, but it's very difficult to read. These pages are actually dissolving, right? You can actually see fading on like the S in that letter. So what this initiative has done is been able to capture those plays and put them in a highly accessible format for anyone on the web. Their infrastructure then is extremely high scaling because of the way that it's been built, in which each of these sites is put into a Dockerized containered workflow. And lastly, you get to HAX.cloud. Now, I don't have anything to show with the App Store cloud, but you can probably see where these two might go together. So let's go to HAX.cloud. And when I go to HAX.cloud, it's going to say, hey, download a HAX site if you need one, or if you already have one, then you can use that. So let's verify that. I haven't done that part in a while. Usually I just get the demo. So here's my IST 402 course. And because everything I'm doing, let's go to it real quick, but because everything I'm doing, and this is an older course for sure, it's just got some topic links and some silly things, and I reference some material in class. So if I take that old IST 402 course and I want to download it, so it's zipped it up, and I have, well, I actually clicked it twice. It's zipped it up, and I have this site. So all those pages that are in that site are referencing back to static HTML. The files that are in here, the part that actually made that take a hot minute to download, these are my uploads. And then I have my site.json file that's basically stringing the experience together. So if I were to pull this up, I can see metadata, right? The individual items. Okay. So I've downloaded IST 402. I'm going to extract, make sure I extract the whole thing, but we'll put it on my desktop. Show the files. Let's make sure. Okay, good. So I've got the whole thing. Wait, no, that's the desktop. Actually, I think it just extracted site.json. My bad. All right, I have to make sure I don't have something selected. No, Ubuntu's being a little weird here. Okay, let's make a folder called IST 402 just to be sure here. Okay, extract everything there. There we go. Show the files. Okay, so I've unzipped these files into IST 402. So I have them on my computer. Now, I'm going to go back to HAX.cloud. It says download or unzip your files, and then click select HAX site. All right, so I skipped step one. I already had that from somewhere else. Now I'm going to go to the desktop, and let's pick IST 402. Do you want to be able to edit files until you close all tabs? Yep, sure. And so, little silly explosion noise there. This is loading directly off my local file system. And so you may notice there are some glitches with this potentially, right? That was supposed to be a picture of my face. Because of the way this is done, it's not actually able to access that file on my file system. However, I could go in, and we've got goals for you, and I could edit goals for you. I hope for you today. And that actually saved there. Now, to demonstrate that that's saved there, we have goals for you. Let's refresh. This goes away. It's not actually there. But when I go back to IST 402, I'm going to open this folder from my computer. Okay. It's still kept those triple dots. So it's actually going and reading and writing files on my file system, because there isn't much of a back end required for this. This is a transformative technology approach. Extremely small pieces, hundreds of them working together on the front end to build an experience in a format that works anywhere. And so when I actually need to go read and write this content, right, there's that goals for you page. All right? And there's my file on here, and it's got that silly meme that I'm pointing to. But if I were to take everything in this page, which this is just a copy on my computer, so it doesn't matter, and I go and we delete some of these things, and I don't want that meme in there anymore, and we delete, and I hit save, right? It's gone from this little place where I'm messing with it right now. But when I go and I reload the file on my file system, it's updated. This is demonstrating the ability to read and write HAX capable sites that could be uploaded to learning management systems or just published directly out to GitHub pages statically without any backend. This is able to load all of these assets because it's actually just piping them in from a content delivery network. We see there's still HAX CMS site editor, site builder, the things that were in some of the other demos. It's loading up the initial assets from the Penn State Web Component CDN in this case. And because that CDN is loading those assets up, when I place the tag in and then I feed the information from my file system, that's enough to hydrate the entire solution. So I hope this gives a picture of some places we might go. There's some interesting ways you can sort of combine these different things. You know, if we had some migration format support locally, if we had the desktop-based version of this HAX Cloud, I have access to those files. If we had the ability to go straight from the desktop to hitting a publish button and it actually sends it to, you know, HAX.psu, all different ways of thinking and working with this when we blow up the notion of a database with huge complexity, an HTML structure with huge complexity. Because when we get highly semantic with our HTML tags, and when we're able to focus on little tiny pieces of scope that all stack and work well together, we can build anything.